Time for overtime.
You ready?
No!
In the world of sports, it's all about the playmakers in today's headlines, from locals to the pros, with interviews from local standouts and sports all-stars across the country that will have you talking.
Jamal Shed down to 9. Shed on the bounce. Shed the blow-by. Shed driving to the hoop. Underneath for Robert. Two-hand slam.
Hear from coaches to players, sports analysts, and broadcasters who are a part of the action every day. Overtime, now with Bert Ramin on ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Welcome. Friday edition of Overtime. It's the end of a long work week and the start of the Final Four in NCAA basketball tonight, tomorrow, championship games in due time, and we got a heck of a sports weekend ahead. Welcome in to the Friday edition of Overtime, Friday, April the 5th. I'm, as always, your host, Bert Ramin, and we got quite a show for you today. Not only do we have a couple great guests hopping on the program here very shortly, but it's an opportunity for you to dominate your neighbor at noon in just an hour with the High Noon Showdown. Up for grabs, big prize pack, including a newly minted sponsor. Welcome to the show, the all-new Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats right here in Sioux Falls. Big gift cards available week in and week out with the High Noon Showdown. Special thanks and welcome to Overtime, Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats. Then the Friday Parlay live, 12:20, an opportunity to win some Minnesota Twins tickets. I got folks that are hooked up for home opening weekend. Tomorrow and Sunday, congratulations last week if you won the tickets. Have a blast in the Twin Cities this weekend. I had one listener win 8 tickets. That's 4 for Saturday, 4 for Sunday. And I got another listener that's going to be sitting pretty, and I mean very pretty, Budweiser deck at Target Field for the Sunday contest. Enjoy the tickets. Have a blast as the Twins look for home win number 1 on the season tomorrow, home to the Cleveland Guardians. On today's program, headlines and highlights here shortly. The latest from the NFL, and we're going to get to the biggest news in the college sports arena in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's not the NCAA tournament on the men's or women's side. It's not the NIL. It is this thing that we're starting to hear rumblings about, a super league in college football. What the heck is that? What does it mean? What's it all about? We'll dive into everything you need to know, everything that is out there, everything that is rumored. Not a whole lot official right now, but safe to say there's a big contingent of folks that control college football, the narrative, the landscape, the future, that are banding together to reshape the sport. And I'm not talking about making some tinkers here and there. I'm talking about tearing down the skyscrapers, tearing down the pinnacles, tearing down everything that we know about college football and rebuilding into something that I think could be pretty darn cool. Change is scary, but sometimes change is good. We'll debate the Super League of college football that could very well be coming to a college football area near you around 11:20. We'll be talking USF softball with head coach Erin for the first time this season around 11:30. And then everything you need to know about the NCAA tournament that begins tonight for the women. The Final Four, not the tournament. The Final Four begins tonight for the women from Cleveland, tomorrow for the men from Glendale, Arizona. A last look at odds, and I'll make my picks for the Final Four on the men's and women's side. We'll see if I'm brave enough to pick an NC State team to win and go to the title game on either side. NC State, first time they've been in the men's Final Four since 1983. For Alabama, it's their first ever appearance. Am I bold enough to take the Crimson Tide or the Wolfpack? We will wait and see. And also got to put my feet to the fire and make a pick in what I think is going to be an amazing basketball game. It'll probably trounce and trump and beat up the ratings we saw on Monday night between LSU and Iowa. We'll wait and see, but this matchup coming up tonight between UConn and Iowa is one you can't afford to miss. High Noon Showdown, headlines at noon, Friday Parlay live at 12:20. RJ Ochoa talking Dallas Cowboys and why he has such a problem with the approach to this season. Not only the lack of what they've done in free agency, but also the up-in-the-air futures of Mike McCarthy, who I think should have been fired last season following the early playoff exit and the loss to my Green Bay Packers, but also Dak Prescott. Who deserves to be trusted more? Who deserves more commitment? Dak Prescott or Mike McCarthy? We'll debate it all. RJ Ochoa, one of our favorites, editor-in-chief of Blogging the Boys at 12:30. And as always, we send you packing with the good, the bad, the ugly, and a smile at the end of this work week. Into the scorecard now. Big night across the hockey world. NHL Finals. It was Tampa over Montreal 7-4. Lightning remain one of the hottest and one of the best teams across the NHL. Elsewhere, Boston wins in Raleigh against Carolina 4-1. Big win for the team. Big win for an individual as well.
Over the line with a break. It's Marchand. Backhand. He scores! Brad Marchand. His 400th goal. Grab that puck. It's a milestone marker. Bruins 1. Hurricanes nothing.
Quite the goal there. Number 400 in the career of Brad Marchand. 4-1 the final. Boston now 45-17-15. Still one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Other finals, Nashville beats up on St. Louis 6-3. Predators are 44-28-4. And the Minnesota Wild had their opportunity to climb back into things kind of with a home game against the Avalanche last night, and Colorado comes to play and notches an impressive 5-2 road win. Avs are 48-22-6. Minnesota's playoff chances continue to dwindle down and down and down. 36-29-10, the overall record for the Wild. Other final of note, just about every team that needed to lose last night for the Wild didn't. They ended up getting wins. LA Kings, one of those teams, 2-1 last night. The winners in San Jose over the Sharks. Kings are now 40-25-11. Tonight in the NHL, 3 games of note going on. Rangers at Red Wings, 6 o'clock. Avalanche at Oilers, 8 o'clock. Golden Knights at Coyotes, 9 o'clock. All 3 of those streamable on ESPN+. Next up for the Minnesota Wild, they are home in St. Paul, playing host to Winnipeg Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you guessed it, you can also stream that game on ESPN+. NBA Finals from last night. The Sixers are back. Embiid is back. And Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid team up for a big win against Miami down south.
Another fake, and now a shot, rimming in and out. No, Batum tips it. Adebayo, though, with the ball. And then Batum knocked it away. The Sixers get it back. Maxey for 3. It's up and good. He nailed the 3. Batum kept it alive. And Tyrese Maxey drains his 4th 3 of the game.
I'll tell you what, and we'll have more on this in just a minute, but look out for the Sixers to make a pretty darn deep run in their Eastern Conference. Last night, Maxey, 37 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists. Joel Embiid, in just his second game back, 29 points. Audio there courtesy of 97.5 The Fanatic out of Philly. 109-105 the final. Miami's 42-34, and look out for Philadelphia, 42-35. The record for the suddenly surging Sixers. Golden State won last night in Houston, 133-110. Warriors are now 42-34. And Denver up against it last night. Low-scoring affair, all things considered. And they go down in L.A. against the Clippers.
96-92, Clippers have the lead and the ball in the front court right. Harden between the circles, 10 on the timer. Takes a ball screen left, Zubats works his way to the paint. Bounce Zubats, jam with the right hand.
Paul George finishes with 28 points. Clippers win 102-100. New record for LA, 48-28. Denver slips down to 53-24. I'm a believer in the Sixers making a deep run this postseason, as is Evan Cohen, who had this to say about Philly on Unsportsmanlike this morning.
If I'm a Philadelphia 76er fan, I don't think there's any playoff loss that you should be okay with. Not one.
Wow,
not against
really?
any team. I think the Philadelphia 76ers are that good. When you've got both of you yesterday writing off the Bucks, you've got other people, CC and I specifically, questioning, let's see what Boston does in the postseason. You've got the Cavs sputtering. You've got Julius Randle out for the Knicks. Why can the Philadelphia 76ers not go to the NBA Finals, just out of curiosity? Like, why? They are so good. They play so hard. Embiid, is just so big and dominant whenever he wants to be. Maxey goes at 8,000 miles per hour, and they're insanely well coached by Nick Nurse. I think they're awesome, and I would not be surprised if they went to the NBA Final.
6 games to go in the regular season for most teams. Sixers are 42-35. They are the 8th seed right now, but they're just 1 game back of being out of that play-in round and could go ahead and take the spot from Miami at the 7, take the spot from Indiana at the 6, and maybe, just maybe, with how dinged up the Knicks are, although they won last night, I think that Philly can continue their climb and maybe get up to that 5 or 4 spot. That's the best case scenario for their seeding, but I co-sign what Cohen had to say this morning on Unsportsmanlike. Look out for Philly. The only loss that I would say their fans could be and should be okay with is a loss to Boston, realistically, because every other team has their issues, has their bugaboos, mentally, injuries, age, youth, inexperience. Otherwise, Philly's experience. Philly's healthy all of a sudden, well coached. I like Philly to go on a run as well right now. And with Milwaukee looking so darn weird, and more so than weird, just bad and a bad mixture, I really like Philly to go on a big run in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now let's set the stage for men's basketball. NIT final was last night. Indiana State and Seton Hall win at it. Great game. Final score, Seton Hall, your NIT champion, 79-77. Here's Seton Hall head coach Shaheen Holloway.
Man, it felt great, right? I told these guys, man, just keep battling. This was an unbelievable atmosphere, man. Indiana State fans was unbelievable. Our fans was great too, man. But you know what? We've been doing this the whole year, man. We've been out battling, fighting, copping, scoring. So, once I said we was down, I said, fella, just relax. We'll be all right. Score, get stopped, we'll be right back in the game.
Indiana State season comes to a close. Remarkable run, 32-7. Their final record. Seton Hall completes the season as the NIT champions with a record of 25-12. Final four for the men starts on Saturday from State Farm Stadium down in Glendale, Arizona. NC State Purdue, game number 1, 5 o'clock on TBS. Alabama UConn, 7:45, same place. TBS, the network for the men. Women's basketball, WNIT final has a day, a time, and a venue now. St. Louis and Minnesota will play at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. CBS Sports Network, and that game will be played in Edwardsville, Illinois. Final four set for women that begins tonight in Cleveland. NC State, South Carolina first, 6 o'clock on ESPN. And the game that everyone will be watching tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN, UConn and Iowa. Andrea Carter with this to say on the battle between Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark.
Paige is the more efficient player as far as field goal percentage goes, knocking down shots, but they are both so good at manipulating the defense. Caitlin has deep range. Paige has an incredible mid-range game. They score in different ways, but they both impact the game at an immense level.
And it's a great battle. Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, a lot more players in the game than just those two, but those are the headliners. As for the head coach's side of things, UConn legendary head coach Gino Auriemma says his team is relishing the pressure tonight.
And I like how all these other coaches are getting a ton of attention and a lot of pressure being put on them to have to win. They always thought I had it easy. Well, now they realize, they wish they could go back to being anonymous, and so I'm kind of relishing this.
Absolutely true. That game, 8 o'clock on ESPN. NC State, South Carolina, a little earlier, 6 o'clock tonight on ESPN. Both those games from Cleveland. Major League Baseball finals, doubleheader yesterday between the Tigers and the Mets. Tigers took game 1, 6-3. Mets took game 2 for their first win of the season, 2-1. Tigers are 5-1 after yesterday's action. Mets move to 1-5. Elsewhere, Cleveland gets a win over Minnesota, 4-2, spoiling yesterday's home opener.
Here comes the 0-1. Swung on, lined right side, sinking fast, shallow right, and it falls in for a base hit. Ramirez scores. Naylor makes it to third, stops there, and Tyler Freeman gives the Guardians a 2-run lead with an opposite field single to shallow right center. And the Guardians continue to click here in the fourth inning.
Guardians win it yesterday 4-2. New record for Cleveland and a good start, 6-2. Minnesota with yesterday's loss, 3-3 on the season. Audio there courtesy of WTAM. Other finals, St. Louis won over Miami at home 8-5, and the White Sox get beat up on the road in Kansas City. Royals dominate Chicago 10-1. Kansas City now 3-4 on the season. Today and tonight in Major League Baseball, A's visit the Tigers at 12:10. Dodgers at the Cubs, 1:20 start time on ESPN+. Rays at Rockies 3:10. White Sox at Royals, Mariners at Brewers tonight on tap. And your Minnesota Twins weekend schedule, home to Cleveland Saturday and Sunday, identical start times, 1:10 the first pitch time. You can always listen to Twins baseball right here on ESPN Sioux Falls, 12:30, your pregame coverage. NFL news this week, the biggest news, Stephon Diggs traded from the Buffalo Bills down to the Houston Texans. Here is Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane on what the Bills were thinking with the move.
You don't want to get into every reason you make every move. It's not one thing with any player. We've traded other players here. We've acquired players, him being one. Everything you do, you think is the best decision. And you make it, you weigh the pros and the cons of every decision like this, and we don't take it lightly. but you're always making it in the best interest of the Bills, and that's what we're trying to do here. And we made the move.
Best interest of the Bills going to be slim pickings at wide receiver, at least right now for Buffalo. Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. They also got Mac Hollins there in Buffalo. If you're saying who the heck is that, you're not alone. There's very slim pickings at wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills heading into this year. They will be picking at least one wide receiver in the NFL draft. If they're not, they're going to be plucking some from the veteran old, slow wide receiver market. We'll wait and see. But the Houston Texans, not only did they get Diggs, they got a couple picks this year, and they reworked his deal yesterday, which includes the opportunity to get another pick in the near future.
Think about it from Houston's standpoint. It got back, in addition to Stephon Diggs, 2 draft picks, one this year, one next year. And if he leaves this year, now they would be in position to get a compensatory draft pick. So they would get yet another draft pick back.
That's ESPN's Adam Schefter. It is a masterclass what the Houston Texans did. Sure, they get Stephon Diggs, a guy that some might characterize as locker room drama and a little bit of kind of character issues, whatever you want to say. I don't really buy into all that as much as the guy just really, really likes to win. And yes, he's had some issues, and maybe there's a lot of smoke there from the issues in Buffalo. We'll wait and see. But they reworked the deal yesterday, knocked the final 3 years off, and it's a 1-year deal for Stephon Diggs down in Houston. So if things are a disaster, if Stephon Diggs is heated on the sideline, complaining not getting the football, and it is an abject disaster, Houston can wash their hands after just 1 year and say, okay, so long, and they can get a compensatory pick depending upon where and how much Diggs signed for in free agency the following offseason. If things are great, they can reestablish his market value, work with him on a long-term deal, and they get one of the better, older wide receivers in the NFL and a guy that has dominated targets, well over 150 targets each and every year over the last 4 years for Stephon Diggs, a huge get for Houston. And like I said when the news broke earlier in the week, Houston's done such a great job this offseason of striking when the iron's hot. They got a really good young team, young quarterback, young running backs, young wideouts, young defenders, and they add guys like Danielle Hunter, and they add guys like Joe Mixon, and they go out and get a guy like Stephon Diggs, these guys that have been around and really good players in the NFL, and that is how you build a championship team. There's not really a kind of example of the past in the NFL of a team that is super duper young. Everyone across the board is young and they go and win a title. There's few examples of guys that are really, really old and they're about to expire and they're done, ready to retire when they win a title. Sometimes quarterbacks can do that late in their careers, but generally speaking, the best championship rosters are a blend of youth, experience, talent, and leadership. And that's what Houston's working on building right now, and they have done a great job this week and this offseason so far, which still includes the second and third and fourth wave of free agency and, of course, the NFL draft, which, by the way, will be underway less than 3 weeks from today. Now that NFL draft, as we round out your scorecard, we're talking quarterbacks every single day. Quarterbacks drive the sport. But there's generational talent at wide receiver, generational talent at tight end with Georgia's Brock Bowers. The wide receiver guy that everyone's talking about, top of the board, Marvin Harrison Jr., just how good is he? Just how good can he be? Here's Dominique Foxworth on the impact he could have early in his career.
Marvin Harrison is so damn good and so potentially impactful as a player. I believe that he could have the impact on a team that a number one quarterback could have. We always talk about winning a Super Bowl is easier when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. I think that's true, but I also think it's pretty easy when you have a future Hall of Famer on a rookie deal and a future Hall of Famer at a very important position.
Dominique Foxworth there, and again, tremendous stuff. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze. There are so many top-flight wide receivers in this class. Tackle is a strong class, as we heard from Matt Miller on the Friday edition last week. 8 tackles that played tackle in college could go in the first round. 6 quarterbacks could go. 3, 4, 5 wide receivers could go. Those are the richest positions in the class overall, and there's a lot of great talent in each and every position, but this year's draft pretty darn flush with wide receivers, pretty flush with quarterback protectors at tackle, guard, center, and then, of course, quarterbacks, potentially 6 first-round quarterbacks at the end of the month. That's your scorecard. Quickly, though, NASCAR race on Sunday, 2 o'clock from Martinsville, Fox Sports 1. PGA Tour Golf continues today at the Valero Texas Open from down in San Antonio. And UFL football, Saturday, 11 o'clock, Brahmas and Showboats from Memphis. 7 o'clock on ABC, Renegades and Battlehawks from St. Louis. Sunday's matchups, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, Stallions at Panthers, Roughnecks at Defenders. Weekend number 2 of the season for the United Football League. Now into your Reliabank headlines of the day here quickly. Certainly a lot to get to on today's show. Caitlin Clark continues to cap her illustrious college career and took home another record-breaking season and another set of awards. The star guard from Iowa was honored yesterday actually, as the Associated Press Player of the Year for collegiate women's basketball for the second consecutive season. Clark received 35 votes from the 36-member national media panel that votes on the AP Top 25 each week. Stanford's Cameron Brink received the other vote, which was completed before the NCAA tournament began. 22-year-old Clark is the 6th player to win the award more than once and the 5th to do it in consecutive seasons. We know her, we love her, and we're rooting for her tonight as she takes on Paige Beckers and the UConn Huskies. That matchup, again, is the nightcap tonight from Cleveland, 8 o'clock on ESPN. We take the break. Latest from the National Football League coming up next, including we got to find some time for this Super League debate. What the heck is that? It's coming to college football. College football in 3, 4, 5 years will potentially look nothing like it has 5 years ago, 2 years ago, even last year. Big changes could be coming to the college football game soon. We'll talk about that and much, much more next. It's the Friday edition of Overtime. Thanks for listening right here on ESPN Sioux Falls.
Streaming live online and with the app, this is Overtime with Burt Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Right back with you on this Friday edition of Overtime. Stay tuned for noon today. It's the High Noon Showdown. Opportunity to beat up your neighbor for a big prize pack each and every week. Of course, do it in a nice way. It's over the phone. You don't got to get in the fight in the parking lot. But the High Noon Showdown coming up in about, 35 minutes on today's program. Call-in line is always 605-362-3776. Coming up later in hour number 2, opportunity to score some Minnesota Twins tickets, a Possibilities or high-end glass gift certificate, and more with the Friday Parlay. That'll get posted up live on the show around 12:20, 12:25. RJ Ochoa, editor-in-chief of Blogging the Boys, talking Cowboys, NFL draft, and more. And let's talk NFL and college football right now. Here's a news blitz from the NFL. Buccaneers agreed to terms with outside linebacker, pass rusher, and Nebraska alum Randy Gregory on a 1-year deal, agreed to earlier this week. Move helps the Bucs fill a need outside linebacker after the departure of Pro Bowler Shaq Barrett, who was released in a salary cap-saving move and later is signed with the Miami Dolphins. Again, Randy Gregory to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the next chapter of his career. The Buffalo Bills let go of a marquee playmaker in Stephon Diggs, and they're getting a marquee offensive lineman of the past to their team on a 1-year deal. The Bills continued a busy week yesterday by announcing the signing of offensive tackle Lyle Collins to a 1-year deal. His agent Peter Schaefer told ESPN's Adam Schefter. Collins, of course, has played with the Cowboys and the Bengals, 89 games, 86 starts, highly experienced, and a welcome addition to the Buffalo Bills, who have lost way more than they've gained this offseason. It took 6 years in college for NC State forward DJ Burns Jr. to become an overnight sensation in a 3-week span that's included a 5-game ACC tournament run and 4 wins in the NCAA tournament. Burns' gap-toothed smile has emerged as one of the faces of the sport. A lot of football fans are wondering, hey, could we use that 6'9", 275-pounder on our offensive line, on our defensive line? His footwork is fantastic. He's well-conditioned. He's an athlete. Would he be interested in playing football? Burns says, no. I'm good. I'm going to be honest. It's really cool, but that's not why we're here. So I'm going to worry about that all when we're all done. We got some wins to go get first. He keeps saying across the board, commenting and saying, not really in the cards, but we will wait and see. The Eagles and left tackle Jordan Mailata reached a contract extension yesterday, $66 million over 3 years, $48 million guaranteed, and a $20 million signing bonus, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. And the news we shared with you off the jump, Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans have reached a deal on a revised contract, you could call, as part of their blockbuster trade. The Houston Texans wiped out the final 3 years on Diggs' contract, giving the receiver the flexibility and ability to become a free agent after this coming year. The Texans also took the $3.5 million guaranteed to Diggs next season and moved it up into this season, giving him a raise and assuring him $22.52 million in guaranteed money this year. Now, if Diggs were to leave in free agency on good terms or bad terms or otherwise, Houston could be in line to get a comp pick in addition to the 2 draft picks, a 5th and a 6th this year and next, respectively, in the trade. So Houston is in a win-win-win scenario with Stephon Diggs, hoping, of course, that Diggs just pans out to be their true blue number 1 receiver for the remainder of his career. But it's a good, savvy move for the Houston Texans to acquire one of the premier wideouts over the last decade in the National Football League. Now from SportsIllustrated.com, other publications like The Athletic have some details on this, but quickly here, we'll be talking about this in the coming weeks. In the midst of a major change around the sport of college football, some sports leaders are proposing a complete page 1 rewrite of the sport amid some already historic changes around college football that include major conference realignment, an expanded college playoff, CFP playoff format. Some interested parties are proposing another structural change to the sport, a so-called Super League. According to The Athletic, the group calls itself College Sports Tomorrow. Composed of sports executives, university presidents, and at least one NFL official, there's a plan to take the 70 most important, again, who knows how they're going to quantify that, the 70 most important programs in college football, including every Power 5 school and Notre Dame, and name them as permanent members of a national league. We heard from Chip Kelly, hey, conferences shouldn't exist. That's where they're going, or that's where this group would like to go. Quote, the perpetual members would be in 7 10-team divisions, joined by an 8th division of teams that would be promoted from the 2nd tier. Those 50 schools that are ranked in the 2nd division would have the opportunity to earn promotion to the 1st league in a structure similar to European football leagues. But those 1st division teams would not be in danger of relegation to the 2nd league. So here you have it in layman's terms. They're going to take 70 teams. 7 10-team divisions, carve it out by region, which I like. I like the regionality, like the tradition, like the rivalries. 7 10-division teams. And then there's going to be an 8th 10-team division that is going to be comprised completely of teams that have played really well in that 2nd tier that hop up into the 1st tier. I got to say this, on paper, there's a lot of details out there. There's a lot of questions and what if and why and everything across the board. But if you were to draw up college football immediately, if everything burnt down and you were to rescape or re-landscape and redo college football, I kind of like this. And we'll get some more details as we move forward, but I've always been a fan of the relegation. I've always thought of and dreamed of, and I've had debates with friends and colleagues and kids in college that we were out drinking or whatever it was. We were always debating the future of college football, and hey, how cool would it be if the MAC was under the Big Ten and the top 2 teams of the MAC that were great that year hop up to the Big Ten, and Illinois and Northwestern pop down for 2 years, and they got to fight their way back into the Big Ten. It's going to be pretty darn similar to that. And I got to tell you, for those of you out there, and of course we're in South Dakota, so we root for the little guys. We root for the small schools. They're still going to have a seat at the table, a 10-team division of their own, and an opportunity to hop up, compete, go to the CFP, and move forward. I got to say, from the details that I'm seeing so far, I'm not patently opposed to this Super League that is being pitched by several marquee presidents, sports executives, and others. College football continues to take a reshape year in, year out, day in, day out. We've seen the likes of Washington and Oregon join the Big Ten, USC, UCLA also in the Big Ten, SMU in the ACC. How about a little bit of regionality, just one big division that is known as that Super League? 8 different conferences, 8 different regions is what it would be tabbed as. And you got the regional The other subsidiary division hopping up with 10 teams each and every year or every other year. I'm a fan of some sort of restructure. This is going to be a huge change, but right now, some of the change I'm seeing, I don't really dislike all that much. We take the break, back with some local sports talk. USF softball head coach Erin Bly joins us next on the Friday edition of Overtime.
Goodbye. ESPN back to more of Overtime with Burt Rameen on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO, Sioux Falls sports leader.
Moving right along through this Friday, April 5th edition of Overtime. Thanks for tuning us in as always. Ever miss any of the show? Podcast links are available, ESPNSiouxFalls.com or on the free ESPN Sioux Falls app. We like to keep tabs on our local baseball and softball programs. USF softball out to a strong start, 14-17 the record, 5-5 so far through the first 10 games within the conference. Joining us now on the ESPN hotline, second year USF softball head coach Erin Bly. Coach, a blast to have you on for the first time this year. How you doing? It's great to talk with you, and I'm excited to feature your team because it's that time of the year. Yesterday was beautiful weather. Today, same deal. Hopefully, no more white stuff floating around here in South Dakota and the Sioux Falls area. We're ready to get in full swing with softball, baseball, and everything, especially as we start to see a lot more home games on the schedule. Talk about the start to the season, Coach. 14-17, 5-5 in conference play. Feels like your team pretty streaky, good and bad lately.
Consistency, and it's all part of the growing process for us. We have a lot of new kids. 8 of our 9 starters from last year's squad either graduated or transferred out. So new faces virtually everywhere you look on the field, but they're really working hard together to get that cohesiveness and play as a team and know their roles and execute in those roles. So definitely a game of consistency, though. Couldn't have said that better myself.
Absolutely. And again, they've lost 3 in a row. They've won 5 in a row before that. So hopefully looking to get back on the right track. They're going to have a doubleheader today against Northern State at home. 6 straight games at home. They'll also see Moorhead over the weekend. So, Coach, let's talk about specifically, you mentioned consistency. You mentioned kind of the cohesiveness of the program. When it comes to putting your coaching hat here and talking about what's clicking, what needs to work specifically to the happenings within each game, what's going well, what needs some work, pitching, batting, otherwise, that fuels into that consistency?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the future, we're definitely looking to offensively have a little bit more power, be able to not go station to station. But right now we're a scrappy team. We have to go station to station with our offense. So it's really just hunting the pitches we want and putting a good swing on them so we can manufacture some runs. And we were doing that really well at the start of conference, and then we hit a little bit of a road bump here the last few games. But yeah, just knowing who we are as a team and knowing we have to have good contact to manufacture runs is really important for us offensively. Pitching wise, we've had again moments of brilliance, and then just as quickly we can turn around and we struggle maybe to hit our spots, or when we're up, throw a good pitch off the plate. So we've worked on that real hard this week at practice. So looking to make better pitches when we're up in the count and not give too many free passes when we're behind.
Coach, who are a few of the standouts on the team this year that are having good seasons so far? Obviously, mixed bag, 14-17, but there's got to be a lot of power through the lineup, a lot of good pitching efforts as well. Who are a couple of the new faces and returners that are shining so far this year?
Yeah, I love that question. We have a really good core that I'm really excited to build the future on. And one of those is our shortstop, Riley Schwiso. She's a freshman out of the Nebraska area, and she has just been phenomenal for us at not only defensively at shortstop, but she was just named a midseason freshman D2 All-American. Her power numbers from her, batting average to on-base percentage, she's just been lights out for us offensively. And then pitching-wise, we have a transfer in from the GPAC. Her name's Maddie Duncan. She has 10 wins on the season for us and has been real sharp. So really done a nice job for us on the mound as well. So those two specifically have really been bright lights this year.
Talking USF softball with head coach Erin here on the Friday edition of Overtime. Thanks for tuning us in. ESPN 102.3 AM 1000 KSOO. Coach, I got a broad strokes question for you in regards to the sport of softball. Sure. A couple years ago, this is year number 2 for the state of South Dakota sanctioning softball. Mm-hmm. I got to ask you this question as far as the impact that you felt at the program and being a head coach and being around recruiting. Of course, the elite athletes that love softball were playing club anyway, but you get that kind of wide-ranging sanctioning, a lot more interest, a lot more girls playing the sport, and a lot more visibility. How have you felt the change in South Dakota, particularly recruiting-wise and everything else with the emergence of that sanctioning of softball?
You know, it's been great for the sport. It's even better for the student athletes that reside in South Dakota. I mean, just as you said, just giving them more visibility, more opportunities to be seen, but also just being up to par with the other states around them. I mean, Nebraska 10, 15 years ago when I was playing was a small market. It's exploded in the last 5 years, I would say, especially with, the emergence of Jordy Ball. But South Dakota, specifically the Sioux Falls area, is, I think, on the exact same path through sanctioning. Their travel ball teams have become a lot more elite and have competed regionally and nationally. So it's been huge. And for us, we're really trying to establish ourselves as a program so we can actually have a shot at those top recruits and Sioux Falls and win some of those recruiting battles. So it's been huge for the state, huge from the players, and big for us, too, because we love local talent.
Oh, absolutely true. And I'm excited for someday baseball getting sanctioning on the boys' side as well. Yep. Coach, let's talk about that program building that you alluded to. You're in year number 2. You got some new coaches alongside. You're working on building that program and that identity and the athletes that you want and the athletes that you can help the most propel their careers and have some success for you and further out on their careers playing professionally and in life. Where do you stand right now with the program? How's the foundation looking? And what are a few goals for the program over the next 6 months, year and a half?
Yeah, for us, it is building a strong foundation. And we've done a really nice job. So this is actually our first season, and it'll be our first full recruiting class this upcoming for 2024. And we have 15 kids coming in. And with that, just really a huge influx of talent, getting some skill players where we had some transfer out or graduate in previous years here. So really shoring up holes we have, but 2, we're bringing in some quite a few transfers from high-level JUCO programs just to really get that infusion of talent, quickly so we can start competing and making a run towards the top half of conference. So I'm really confident that we have a really good core here, and with those coming in, filling up some of those holes that we currently have, we should make a strong run next year. And we're excited to kind of build that foundation this year to see how far we can go next year.
And, of course, day by day it takes to build a program. Day by day, you got a couple big matchups coming up over the weekend. You got a doubleheader this afternoon, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Yep. Northern State coming to the Sanford Diamonds. And tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, another doubleheader. Moorhead at the Sanford Diamonds, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, those times. If you need tickets or more information, usfcougars.com. Coach, what is the key to a successful weekend this weekend for your ball club?
For us, we use... we live by Bill Belichick's words of do your job, right? We all know what our role is, and we all have a job to do. And for us, it's just executing that role and being consistent doing it day to day. And if we can do that, we're matched up real well against Northern. They bested us earlier in the year, but not by a lot. So we're confident we can make some things happen against them. And Moorhead's a good program. They've had a good start so far. But again, if we just play Cougar softball and do the little things right, we should have just as good a chance as anyone. So that's the plan.
Well, Coach, to quote Bill Belichick, to talk about Belichick, I'll let you know one thing, not a surprise, but you are way better interviewer than Bill Belichick ever could be. You gave me a lot more than, hey, we're on to Northern State. We're on to Northern State. I love it. Always great to have you. We'll talk to you again soon. USF softball coach Erin Bly. Coach, go get him this weekend, and we'll check in again soon with the program. Thanks so much.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us.
All right, USF softball this year, 14-17 the record, 5-5 in the conference. They got 4 games between today and tomorrow. Game times 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock Northern State today at the Sanford Diamonds, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock tomorrow as Moorhead rolls into town. Again, the record 14-17, 5-5 within the conference. More information, including tickets, schedule, recaps, and everything you need to know about USF Cougar softball, usfcougars.com. Coming up next, NCAA tournament preview for the men and the women. A last long look at your odds, your spread, and your title odds for all 8 teams remaining between the 2 Final Fours. And I will make my picks. They're probably going to be an absolute disaster, but I'll do it anyway. Coming up next, it's the Friday edition of Overtime. By the way, just now 15 minutes and 30 seconds away from the High Noon Showdown. Opportunity to score a bag of goodies each and every week here on the show. Get the bag, get the W. High Noon Showdown coming up at noon. Friday edition of Overtime rolls on next.
Get ESPN with the free app and online. Grab your phone or call us up on your smart device. Now let's get you back to Overtime with Burt Ramin on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Right back with you. Friday edition of Overtime underway. Nearly halfway over. High Noon Showdown headlines coming up. Friday Parlay Live. Our conversation with RJ Ochoa, who's the editor-in-chief of Blogging the Boys at SB Nation. We'll be talking Dallas Cowboys, a disaster of an offseason for numerous reasons. We'll get the critical eye and the critical voice of RJ Ochoa on the radio waves here in Sioux Falls with you to talk about the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, old Jared Jones, and everything in between. And we'll dive into that here at around 12:30. The good, the bad, the ugly to follow. But now is the time to talk about men's and women's collegiate basketball and my picks for the Final Four. Quickly here, Seton Hall is your NIT champions. Dre Davis scored on a layup with 16 seconds to go last night to cap Seton Hall's decisive late run, giving the Pirates a 79-77 win over the Indiana State Sycamores and their first NIT championship since 1953. Seton Hall finishes the season at 25-12. Sycamores finished the season 32-7 and fell 1 win short of claiming their first national postseason title since the 1950 NAIA championship and 1 win short of the school's single-season record set by the 1978-79 NCAA tournament runners-up, led by Hall of Famer and the only big name to come out of Indiana State basketball in recent memory, Larry Bird. Pretty darn good basketball player in college. Very, very accomplished NBA basketball player, of course, Hall of Famer. Larry Bird, and now Indiana State back to relevance this season for the first time in a long time. LSU Tiger basketball on the women's side has already got some change in plans for next year. Star Haley Van Lith, who transferred to the program last year at this time from the University of Louisville, is now back in the transfer portal. She averaged 11.6 points, 3.6 assists per game in her first and only season with the reigning champion Tigers, who ended their postseason run on Monday night with a loss to Iowa in the Elite Eight, also known as the most watched women's collegiate basketball game ever. Van Lith was eligible to declare for the WNBA draft this past week, but also has a 5th season of collegiate eligibility granted to student athletes by the NCAA during the COVID-19 pandemic. 5'7" guard, 2-time first-team All-ACC selection. Again, 11.6 points, 3.6 assists per game. Certainly didn't end the way that she wanted this year in Baton Rouge with the LSU Tigers. He's opting to go elsewhere. We'll wait and see where she ends up. Very intriguing name. I would put her in a top 20, top 15 player nationally. Haley Van Lith, disappointing season at LSU, but before that time was an amazing basketball player at Louisville. I still think she's one of the top players in the country and will have an opportunity to shine elsewhere, but not with the LSU Tigers. The big matchup tonight, you got the best team in the country in South Carolina, of course, taking on NC State. But then you get the 2 biggest names, 2 biggest icons right now in collegiate women's basketball, Caitlin Clark and UConn's Paige Beckers, clashing and are stressing that tonight's national semifinal showdown between the Hawkeyes and the Huskies was all about their teams and not about them. UConn's Gino Auriemma, who is coaching in the women's Final Four for the 23rd time, sees the individual superstar matchup in more historical lens. He recalls the 1979 men's national championship game between Magic Johnson of Michigan State and Larry Bird of Indiana State as helping elevate not just March Madness, but the NBA as well. It can have that kind of impact tonight. I'll be tuning in. Can't wait for it. UConn, Iowa, 8 o'clock Central on ESPN. Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers. Beckers was on the scene before Clark was on the scene. Clark obviously took the baton and elevated the sport. Beckers, of course, battling some injuries. Beckers is back next year in college basketball. Clark is declared for the WNBA, so Beckers might just get the torch back from Clark after tonight, depending upon the outcome. And regardless of the outcome, even if Iowa dominates UConn, Paige Beckers will be one of the faces of women's basketball next year and continue to elevate that game that everyone in our area knows and loves so much. Now for a look at these odds for the final time and my picks for the Final Four as we gear it up for the weekend. Again, men's Final Four coming up beginning on Saturday from Glendale. Women's Final Four starts tonight from Cleveland. On the women's side, spreads have not changed too tremendously much, but South Carolina is still an 11.5-point favorite over NC State, and UConn is a 3-point dog against Iowa. What do I like here? What do I want to happen? What do I think happens? I want Iowa to go win it all. Do I think they will? I do not. I don't. And I've been out on Iowa, and I've been wrong, admittedly. I thought they would lose to LSU. I thought LSU was deeper. I thought they had more skill players. I thought they were going to be the better team and win the game. I was wrong and happily wrong there that Caitlin Clark's collegiate career that's a lot of C's, has continued. There's another one. UConn, Iowa, 3-point favorite for the Hawkeyes. South Carolina, NC State, an 11.5-point spread in favor of the Gamecocks. Give me South Carolina, give me Iowa, and then give me South Carolina to win it all. If Iowa wins, I will be elated and love it for the star power, the legacy, everything that comes with it for Caitlin Clark. But give me Iowa to beat UConn tonight, and I don't think that's going to be crazy close. I think it's going to be a 5, 6, 7-point game. Caitlin Clark with a big second half, hopefully draining threes that make you shake your head and say, man, I've never seen that before, like she does every time she hits the floor. Paige Becker's fantastic. I think Caitlin Clark will be better. South Carolina wins it all, though. Later on in that women's Final Four. Latest odds for the title, South Carolina minus 195, Iowa plus 300, UConn, and then NC State, the long shot at plus 1,600 right now. On the men's side, not good games projected from Vegas. 9-point spread in favor of Purdue over NC State. Alabama and UConn, that spread in favor of the Huskies, also 11.5. Are they going to be good games? I think NC State Purdue is going to be a good game. Alabama, UConn's old school. They're physical. They're tough. They defend. They slow it down. They speed it up. They pace the game. They got the stars. They got every single kind of player you need. They got the young dynamos. They got the experienced guys. They got the great big and Donovan Clingan. I love all caps, underline, bold, italicized, whatever funky font you want to put it in. I love UConn this year. They're going to be the champs. But give me NC State to win and upset Purdue. The Boilers are a really great program, really good team. But this year, they've lost games to Northwestern, Nebraska, Ohio State, and Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament. Zach Edey has been their bread and butter. You look at their high points across the season over the last 10 games, dating back to February 10th. Zach Edey, Edey, all the way down. They run through Zach Edey. If you slow him down, if you shut him down, you shut down the Purdue Boilermakers. Give me NC State. Give me TJ Burns. Give me everything they got going for them. Strike when the iron's hot. NC State will upset Purdue in the men's semifinals. And then UConn will take care of business on the men's side. There it is, my NCAA tournament picks. I got South Carolina. I got UConn. No hot takes there. But I will take NC State over Purdue straight up over the weekend. Give me the Wolfpack over the Boilers. Heard it here first on Overtime. And with that, I'm making bold predictions. I'm trying to win big. Are you trying to win big? That is the question of the moment. Let's dial in right now. Let's do this thing. It is time to compete. It is time to win. And it's time to grill up some success with the all-new Uncle Ed's Specialty Meats. I got a gift certificate here in the studio for the winner of the High Noon Showdown. Do you want to be a winner? Do you want to start your weekend on top? Do you want to beat up your neighbor? Put up your dukes. Let's get ready to roll. Caller 1, caller 2. High Noon Showdown coming up next. That number, 605-362-3776. 605-362-3776. First-time callers, don't be shy. Let's do it. Let's start the weekend on top. High Noon Showdown next. Caller 1, caller 2. Prize pack is in tow and in the studio. I want to give it to you, but you got to win. The High Noon Showdown. It's next. 605-362-3776.